Welcome back to Level Up, because you don't know what you don't know. And I'm John Cale. Glad that you chose to join us today for this episode, and I hope that you have been making changes in your life and seeing some improvements based on some of the other episodes that we've put together. Today, we're going to be talking with a friend of mine, Gary, and his wife, Tricia, that I have known for 25 years. It's the first part of a two-part episode. And Gary used to be one of the largest drug dealers in the southern part of our region. And we're titling this today, From Slinging Blow to a New Go. That's right. That's what you heard. From slinging blow to a new go. So today, Gary and Tricia are going to share their story. And they're going to share, in the first episode, we're going to talk a little bit about their upbringing, the culture, where they were, how they grew up, because they grew up together, right? Mm-hmm. Trish and Gary have been together through the good, the bad, the ugly, right? And the new road. Yes. And so it's going to be really interesting. And in the first episode, we're going to get the backdrop from their upbringing and their life and the involvement in the drug scene, all the way to what caused that to stop. Mm-hmm. And then in episode 2, we're going to talk about what happened and how things changed and how things progressed in their life. One of the things I thought would be really interesting before we talk about that was just looking at a few statistics today about drugs in our culture. So today in the culture, the most recent survey that I could find indicates that there are about 160 million people in our culture that are being harmed by drugs or drinking. So, drinking is added to that, right? Because that's abused in a huge way as well. So about 160 million people in the country are being harmed by drugs and drinking. So if you think about the fact that the United States has, roughly 350, 400 million people. Yes. This is a significant amount of our population that's being impacted. Right. It's a big, big issue. Another stat that I found that is very interesting and relevant today is that 75% of Americans say that they wish that substance use would be considered a medical issue, not criminal. Which, when I read that, I thought, wow, that is a really interesting perspective. Yes. That people are going, look, this is a medical thing. Like, I got a problem, right? Don't put me in jail for it, because putting me in jail is not going to take away my problem, right? But treat me and help me to get healing from it. So I thought that was an interesting statistic, that 3 out of 4 Americans think that it ought to be a medical issue. Yes. And then fentanyl and synthetic opioids are a really big problem right now in this culture. Big problem. In fact, this past year, 52,000 people died because of fentanyl and synthetic opioids. Wow. So when you think about that, one of the things that's happening is they're starting to mix fentanyl with drugs. Yes. So they're mixing it with scripts. A lot of people are now not only doing all these other things, but they're getting involved in prescription drug use, right? Yes. And in addition to that, they're mixing fentanyl with cocaine. So people are buying drugs thinking everything's okay, and then they're dying because somebody has mixed something with it, and it's not pure. So, my question would be, when I think about this, the thing that I think about is why? Like, why is this such a huge issue in our country? With 160 million people being impacted and damaged, why is that the case? And I come back to the answer that I think there's a lot of stress. I think there's a lot of anxiety. Yeah. I think there's a lot of hopelessness. I think the society that we live in and the culture right now for the generation growing up, it's different than when we grew up. Yeah, that's right.
I agree.
Facing choices and decisions that we never faced when we grew up. And so this is driving people to try and find an answer, right? Try to find an answer in life to bring peace to them. And I think as all you folks who are watching the podcast will find out, as we talked with Gary and Tricia, we're going to find out that going to these things, these substances, drugs, whatever they may be, right, is not really the answer. Right? At the end of that road, you got to come down. Yes. Right? Yes. You can get as drunk as you want. Right. You can get as high as you want.
Yeah. That's right.
But at some point, you're going to come down. Yes. And the problems that drove you there are still going to be there.
That's right.
You need something much greater than a substance to help bring peace and relief in life. So let me introduce Gary and his wife, Tricia. This is Gary Wyatt and Tricia Wyatt, and I'm very, very glad to have you guys here with us today. Gary and I, as I mentioned, and Trish, we have known each other for 25 years. We met in the year 2000 in Stowe, Ohio, when both of us were much younger and had much less gray hair.
No gray hair.
And in those days, we were working with teenagers. Right?
Yes.
We were doing craziness with teenagers, right? And trying to help keep teenagers between the guardrails as they were growing up and making decisions. And so Gary is the author of this book, From Healing to Dealing, that is on his website as well. Gary wrote this book, which is a story of his and Tricia's life and the conversion and transformation that took place in their life. And he also, now you guys also founded the North Hill Community House, right?
Yes.
And when was that founded?
2001.
Okay.
And that's the North Hill Community House is what housed the actual ministry. We initially started off as He Brought Us Out Ministry.
Okay.
That's what you would have known us when you first met us.
Okay.
And then we went on to get a building, which was a house that used to be a dope house that we went in and seized and bought and actually put He Brought Us Out inside of the North Hill Community House.
Okay. So, and they're still very active in that, right? I know you guys are feeding people every month and you're using the house. You do trainings of different types. You try and help people find jobs and careers and different things like that.
And
right?
we have a youth program. We have a mentoring and tutoring program.
Okay.
And we have after school program that we do.
Summer camp.
And a summer camp. That's
awesome.
right, that we're getting ready to start. So we just have a wealth of resources for the community.
Yeah. And you guys didn't just drop into that and like, okay, we did a summer thing and you were out. Like, no, this is like 24 years.
Yeah.
Like they're in it, right? Committed to it and have made an impact in the community. In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, it was crazy to me because when I was down there visiting you the last time, I went around the corner and there's a Hell's Angels regional headquarters right next to your house, like literally across, just around the corner.
And that is true.
Because I came around and there were all these Harleys and I'm like, what is happening at this house? And it had on the front of it like regional Harley Davidson group.
Yes.
So very involved and committed to the community. And then you guys are also engaged in a lot of stuff with the city, right?
Yes.
Like are there boards and different things that you guys are involved with?
We sit on some commissions.
Okay.
With the last mayor, we were ambassadors. So we do a lot also with their youth coordinator. So we still do a lot when it comes to doing it with the youth.
Awesome. I know also the other thing that, Gary, you mentioned to me, I know you've been to Washington several times, and then you've met quite a few prominent people, and you have some letters, I think you mentioned, of commendation, or you've been recognized by some places. What was one of the ones you mentioned to me?
One of the main things is our grassroots leader, Mr. Robert Woodson, which is housed in D.C., who discovered us back in '98 doing a welfare reform initiative to bring grassroots leaders. It's called the Woodson Center.
Okay.
And we do a lot of outside of the county, city of Akron, traveling with the Woodson Center. And they the one to put us kind of on a national platform.
Okay.
To do grassroots, what works and why, and that it works. What they did, they compared the Joseph with the grassroots leaders and the, what is that? The Joseph and the Pharaohs, meaning
so bringing the Pharaohs, the people with the money, to the Josephs, the boots on the ground, working together to better the community.
Oh, okay, awesome, very cool, very cool.
It's like Hudson to Akron.
Yeah,
Hudson helping Akron financially.
Okay,
but Akron got a lot of the on the boots on the ground ideas. You know, like with that fentanyl. When that fentanyl came out, of course, using like the suburban areas that's having the money, but they didn't have the what and the why.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You had to come to the hood to get the why and the what. You know what I mean? This is what's going on down. This is why somebody's kid is coming to the neighborhood. Well, they don't need to be down here, but I'm going to tell you what they're doing down here. So it takes both of us to work together to make this thing work, and it has.
That's awesome. That's a great concept. Well, for those of you watching the podcast, one of the things that you'll know that I try to do in every episode is I try to have a word for the day. And so I felt today the word that makes sense is choice. Mm-hmm. I thought that's a really good word. I think it actually is pretty powerful. And, you know, when you stop and think about the word choice, right? Before you get out of bed in the morning, you could make a series of choices. Yes. I mean, I think we forget how much choices steer our life every day. Yes. I mean, you could make several choices before you hit the ground out of bed. Mm-hmm. Like, number one, turning off your alarm clock or hitting snooze and getting up and then deciding I'm going to get out of bed, right? And I'm going to go to the bathroom and I'm going to brush my teeth and I'm going to take a shower and I'm going to, right? So I want you to think about how many choices we make, hundreds a day. Yes. And realize that the choices that we make, right? I really feel like this is true. Like that's really the steering wheel of where our life goes. Mm-hmm. If you picture every choice you make as turning the wheel just a little bit in life, and the next choice, you're turning the wheel another way, it's taking you somewhere. Yes. Mm-hmm. So choices, hundreds a day, times 30 days a month, times 365 days a year could literally mean that somebody could end up over here instead of over there. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right? Yes. And this is where we get into problems, right? Mm-hmm. Because if we make wrong choices, it actually begins to take us down to a place that we don't really want to be on, where we can't even see where we potentially would have went, right? So it affects our circumstances, it affects where we go, it affects our safety, it affects our career, all of those different things. So let's get into, in this episode, let's talk a little bit about the beginning for you guys and how you got into this. What was the dynamic like? So can you paint a picture of what family looked like for you when you were growing up? Just maybe a quick overview of what it looked like for you and your family situation.
Well, for us, we came up in the 60s, 70s. Of course, I was born in the 60s, 65.
Yeah, same here.
And so Tricia's 68. She'll tell her story. And I came up basically in the Summer Lake area, of Akron. Came up in the time, we were still dealing with racism, kind of going through that. Matter of fact, I felt like I was born in the perfect era. I was built for this era, built for this time. So we dealt with a lot of that in the 70s coming up. But we always was in a mixed neighborhood, around the Summer Lake area, Kenmore area. And so we came up kind of poor. Mom didn't have no money, was on welfare. My dad worked at Firestone, but they wasn't together. And so it was 5 of us, I had a sister and 3 other brothers. So it was 5 of us, single mom coming up. She was married, didn't work out, got a divorce. So it was always the boys taking care of each other. So my dad and them lost their jobs around 78, 79. The rubber industry was moving down south. People was losing jobs, depression and all that. So I was entering into high school in the 80s, and to the point where I'm like, you know what? However I was raised, I'm not going to be like that. So, that's kind of like my childhood upcoming, had to fight to survive. It wasn't as bad as far as gangs, because we had a lot. We had the community centers. We had like the Camp Winoas. We had a lot going on that kind of kept us away, but yet you still had that because of that environment. You know what I mean? Because you just we didn't have the money the other kids had. They could go to the mall, so sometimes we had to, if we didn't have a job or work, we kind of had to steal a little bit coming up, and so that's kind of like our life as boys, until I got in high school, did a lot of sports, track, cross country, and did real good. And then I decided to go off to the military. So once I went off to the military in 85, that's when I started putting my life together. But then I let Tricia tell her story.
Yeah. So and how did you guys meet too? I want to find out.
Gary and I been knowing each other since elementary school. We lived in the same neighborhood.
Okay.
So he was in the 6th grade and I was in the 4th grade. So he always told me that I was going to be his wife. And I told him, absolutely not, because I do not like you. I wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend anyway. My father was very strict. But we grew up in the same neighborhood. And as Gary said, we grew up poor. My mom and my dad was in the picture, but it's just, the dynamics of my father was alcoholic. So we had a pretty rough life. And I wasn't allowed to do anything. It's strict. We grew up in a strict environment, church environment. So I wasn't really allowed to do much. I didn't do a lot in school, didn't do any of that kind of stuff. But Gary and his family grew up with us, so they were allowed to come and socialize with us, and we did. And we lost contact with each other when Gary went away, because I was still in high school when Gary went to the military.
Okay.
So he's like 3 years older than me. So we met back up when his mom passed away.
Okay. And so that was like around what year?
86.
86. I graduated in 87.
Okay. So you guys met back up.
He was here on humanitarian leave. He was recruiting from the military.
Yeah.
And what branch? Were you in the Navy?
Navy.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I remember when we met, because I remember you were in the Navy and doing weekends, right?
Yeah, weekend. I did 34 years in there. We'll talk about that later.
So we grew up together. When they moved away, we were still in the same neighborhood. When he moved away, he explained his mom got divorced from his father that raised him. We lost contact. We got back in contact when his mom died.
Okay.
Back in 86.
86. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we started, being friends, hanging out.
Yeah.
I just had graduated from high school when I seen him in 87.
Okay. So let me ask this. Can you remember a moment when you made a decision to go sideways? Like, can you think back in your life and be like, yeah, that was the point in a road that this happened, and I decided, man, I'm going to go this way, away, and go kind of whack, I guess I would say.
Well, I went through the military. Me and Tricia kind of dated real good. We was active duty from 85 to 89. And so I got out in 89 and got in the reserves and kind of got in them streets looking for a job, and kind of, had just came out of that Persian Gulf. So I had a lot of issues coming up out of the military, what I saw overseas.
Yeah.
When I saw in the Middle East. And so
yeah. So you were active in battle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a whole different story. I mean, I respect all of our military.
Yes,
Right.
me too.
But I know that when you're in active battle, it's there are things like my nephew was in active battle in the same place.
Right.
And he's still to this day has issues. I mean, you can't just like, it wasn't like he just went and saw a movie.
Right.
And came back and I'm okay tomorrow.
Right.
I mean, it's lasted decades.
Right.
Right. So
it was some trauma I was dealing with coming out of the military, stuff I had seen that nobody else had ever seen, and just what goes on in the military stays in the military. And so I had that, got back to the streets, moved in with Tricia, and we were just dating and stuff like that. And so then I started affiliating with some of my old friends, and by then cocaine had turned into crack, and it was just off the hook. When I left here, you didn't hear about many people in 85, 86 getting high, but when I got out in 88, 89, it became a war on drugs so bad that they had to start dealing with that from the White House. And of course, the president then was dealing with the war on drugs, and it was so ready available, but I had started selling it because of my affiliation with some of the high-end people. And I said, well, I'll just do it a little while, just kind of come up. I ain't trying to win the world or rule the world or be New Jack City or nothing like that. But I just wanted to make a little money, come up, buy a few things, pay the child support or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I messed around and got hooked on drugs. I started off snorting, but it was crack, and I said, I'll never, of course, the thing is you don't use your own supply. But just out of curiosity, I messed around and started snorting and just ran out one day, and all I had was crack. And then the person I was with convinced me to just take one hit. Well, let me tell you something. One hit is too much, and 1,000 hits is not enough. That changed the course of my life. And the rest was history.
Well, when we talk about choices, right? Like
yes,
That one choice
Yes.
Right.
caused your life to go into a U-turn.
Yes.
It wasn't just a little adjustment,
detour.
right?
Yeah.
You literally went a completely different,
Yeah.
because the crack is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is readily available.
Yes.
It is cheaper.
Yes.
And it's more addicting.
Yes.
So when you add those three things together, your audience of people that can do it
Yes.
goes from this to this.
Yes.
And that just fuels an epidemic
They
in the society.
They took that thing from the 70s and early 80s that it was only a rich man's high when you would freebase. You know, you hear people, them stars doing that. But then they converted that to the point that it was affordable for everybody. You can get a $10 hit, $20 hit piece of crack cocaine, this little, that could change the course of your life. Almost a little bit bigger than a mustard seed.
Wow.
And it have brought mighty men down.
Wow.
Mighty men.
So it's probably a real miracle that you're here.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, it's a miracle that you're maybe even still breathing air.
Yeah.
In all reality.
Oh yes.
Or not in jail.
And not in prison for your whole life.
Right.
So let me ask this. I'm on this section, and then we're going to talk about some of the impacts of your choices, right? So was there a time when you knew that you were in trouble? Like you knew, I got a problem here.
Yes.
And you decided, I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to, you had a kind of a crisis point where you were like, I know that I'm doing this. I know that it's wrong. I know I'm, but you couldn't turn and change your life at that point, and you kept going. Can you remember that point or a time like that?
I remember Tricia started seeing my mood changes because you drink or smoke long enough, anything, it'll start changing your mood. Even with prescription drugs, it'll change your mood if you're on certain type of drugs. And so my mood started changing, and she started seeing different little changes and me staying out later. You know what I mean? I used to be out, just make runs and come back. I'm out all night now. Then I'm coming back sleeping for 2 days. So she's like, you all right? And finally I admitted, that no, I'm not all right. I done messed around and got strung out on, hooked on cocaine.
Yep.
So I went from snorting to the point where I had graduated. That wasn't enough. I needed that next high. And that's how drugs do you. They trick you. And so even the Bible talks about we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against spiritual weaknesses. People want to try to deal with this stuff on the natural. It's a whole nother level to these drugs. I mean, you be so high, if you even been real drunk, you start thinking off into another realm. You know what I mean? So people can't just say, well, we could just fix this. No, because if you don't fix the mental, spiritual side of it, you'll never fix the natural side of it. And that's why you have what's coming out with the faith-based programs, people laying hands on you. That's where my Pentecostal roots came back up, because I knew in order for me, not for you, for me, I knew 12 steps wasn't going to work for me. I needed one step, and I needed to just get it out and take it to the Lord and just give everything I got to him. That's how I came by way of changing. It was the spiritual part. Now, sometimes people, they need to do the 12 steps. They need to understand the whole breakdown of it. But for me, first of all, I didn't have much time. I needed to get that done with. But needless to say, I knew I needed to change. But I said, well, let me just make one more run. Let me make one more sale, because I wanted to get something done here. And to the point where I got to the point I was smoking everything up. So I wasn't making no profit. I was getting high with everything. And then she started noticing that you know what, you gone now. We got to fix this.
Well, one of the things you said just a second ago was you talked about the fact that you have to deal with the spiritual side, right? And one of the things I've talked about in the podcast on several of my episodes is that we can talk about all these different issues, and you can get advice about your identity and relationships and expectations in life and all of these different things, right?
Yeah.
But the challenge is that if you neglect that side, right, you can't do that because we have a spiritual side to us.
Yes.
Right? So if you try to use natural means to solve all the problems,
Right.
you're leaving wide open the whole side that is part of us, which we're spiritual beings,
Right.
and we're not
Right.
touching that. So,
Right.
so really, really good truth there. Can you think of 3 choices, good or bad, 3 choices that you made in your earlier years that shaped who you became, and as you got older? Like, are there 3 things that you could say choices you made, bad or good, that really were like? I guess what I would say, it would have been a key point where like the wheel really turned. Like, were there 3 of those, good or bad?
Well, I could tell you the main 3 point choices in my life. One of the best choices I made was to go to the military.
Okay.
And so that changed and saved my life. The second choice I made was to have outside kids,
Okay.
Ishmaels, or I would say out of wedlock. We wasn't married, but I had different children's mothers with different kids.
Okay.
Prior to me.
Yeah.
Prior to Patricia,
Yeah.
that I felt the first choice was good because I went to the military. The second choice, which was a bad choice, is having all these outside kids which had different issues.
Yeah.
And that's a biblical thing right there when you talk about Abraham and Sarah. You know what I mean? Instead of waiting on the promise with my wife, I decided to go into Hagar and have an outside kid, which I wasn't married. That's a spiritual thing, but I'm just saying, had Abraham waited on the promise, we wouldn't be the way we are now. But what he did is went into his concubine, and of course, that's a whole nother issue of outside. And I'm not going to bring all that, but I wanted to tie that. That's a spiritual thing also.
Yeah.
Where I got off at. And the next best thing, the third choice I made, which is a good choice, is when I gave my heart to the Christ in September the 30th, 1991, because it wiped away, it cleansed up my whole life, from start to finish. It helped me understand purpose. So me going to the military, going through what I went through, had a good run, and then getting out, and I got out with some trauma. I should have dealt with that trauma and didn't realize some of the PTSD stuff I had when I got out that I should have dealt with a psychologist. It's okay to be a Christian and get some counseling too.
Yeah, right on.
You know what I mean? It's okay to be, but you need counseling with it too. But in my case, I got out, like I said, did the drugs, and then all of a sudden, it took the Lord, the spiritual part, to come in and clean me up. I was addicted on a $1,200 a week crack cocaine habit.
Yeah. And that would be a lot more money right now.
Yes.
In today's money,
yes,
it'd be multiples of that that you were spending on a weekly basis.
Yes.
Thousands and thousands of dollars.
And the reason why I wasn't personally spending, because I was a drug dealer. I was just a crackhead dope dealer.
Yeah.
And so I was supplying my own drugs. But at that point, when that changed my life, that was the third choice that got me to where I'm at today. So each choice led to the other choice.
You said something there that really resonated with me. And I think that a lot of people who are watching the podcast today can resonate with, your background, how you came out through this. And I would probably tell you, if I ask you for the fourth thing, it'd probably be sitting next to you. Right?
Yes.
that she was in your life. And I would imagine that you had quite an influence on keeping him within the rails somewhat, and had a big part of him being here today. I don't mean coming to this podcast. Yes. I mean, being able to walk upright and come to this podcast.
Yeah, and still.
Yeah, and still.
I just, during that time, even though we weren't walking the walk that we should have been, our background was coming from church. Mm-hmm. And I always reminded him, we need to get back to that.
You had a benchmark to go back to, right? I think when I think about that from the spiritual side of things, it talks about the fact that when you raise your kids, right,
train them up.
In they know the Bible,
Yes.
you train them who God is, that when they're older, they won't walk away from it. And we see this happening right now, like in our church where we're at. Our church, this church was almost dead, and another church sent people to help, right? And they came and tithed there.
Right.
And in 3 years, that church went from almost being closed to 650 people on Sunday morning.
And I believe that's how it should be in a Christian faith.
Yep.
It's almost like I am a firm believer of the village.
Yeah.
So you have to have your village around you, and you have to know who's in your village.
Yeah.
Everybody in your village can't be like you. You got to have different people in your village.
Yep. That makes total sense. So let me ask you this. What would you say is one of the biggest lies around the dealing and drug life stuff? You had to say, this is like, you talk to the people watching the podcast, right? And they're hearing your life, and maybe there's some of them that associate, right? Maybe they came through something similar. Maybe some of them are in the midst of it right now. And maybe some of them are on the other side of trying to make decisions, and they could go down the wrong road. Like, what would be one thing around that cycle that's one of the biggest lies that you feel about the drug culture and selling and dealing drugs?
One thing I would say is, you hear people say, you don't understand. You don't understand me. You don't understand my story. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to make an excuse why they doing what they doing. It ain't no excuse. You just doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We know. I never have blamed my wife, military, upcoming, bringing on my addiction. I started drinking on my own. I started getting high on my own. I started that on my own. Now, is it that easy to quit? No, it's not. You need help. You need advice. You need a superior, higher being to get rid of this. But the number one thing is that I can't change. You don't understand my story, or you don't understand.
Yeah.
That's what you hear them say first.
And
Gotcha.
if I can add, I think it's a fake prestige. You see the drug boys or girls now, the fancy cars and the jewelry.
Videos, Hollywood.
That is a facade that only lasts for a moment.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you don't turn it around, if you don't give your life to Christ and you get busted, you lose that. They take everything from you. You don't get to keep it.
That's right.
It's not yours.
Well, and the other thing that they don't show a lot of times is the number of people who are involved in that scene that end up with bullets in them.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't put that up, because when you're in that culture, right?
Right.
A lot of times the people you're dealing with don't have conscience.
Right.
I mean, they don't. They're used to taking people out.
Right.
And depending on where you're at in that chain of
Yes.
process,
Correct.
it's either you take that person out or you're going to get taken out, because
And I couldn't imagine doing it now, because I mean, back then it was okay. It wasn't as bad as it is now.
Right.
But there's no respect
Yeah.
now in the streets.
Yeah.
Because the younger people have taken it over, at least. And I know, dealing drugs is not good at all. But if you're gonna do it, you run it like a business. You respect, whoever you're dealing with, or you
Right.
respect the other people that you're not dealing
Right.
with. They don't have no respect now. And you're right. That's where all these guns and shoot ups and drive-bys. It wasn't like that back then.
Right.
If I had to say so. It's not good at all.
Right.
But it was the best of a bad situation.
Right.
Yeah.
At that time.
And we weren't a dog. We didn't beat people up or shoot
Right.
people or pull guns on people. Did we carry guns? Yes, but we never had to use them.
Right.
And if I had to say, Gary always says, is we were nice drug dealers. We helped people out. I wouldn't let a lady come and do things or sell their, you see all kinds of crazy stuff. I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? We don't do that. Never sold to family. No, we don't do that. You know what I'm saying?
And just, we helped a lot of people. I done got people's cars fixed, was feeding them, buying them groceries. I be in the dope house drunk and high, and I go buy groceries, still getting high. You know what I mean? Just.
So even back then, when you were still dealing and doing drugs,
Yeah.
your heart that was put in you
Yeah.
at birth by God, right?
Right.
Still cared for people.
Yes.
You have to have a conscience. Now they don't have a conscience.
Right.
You know, Gary tells it. He was getting high one day in a drug house with a whole bunch of people, and one of the people called him out like, "Why are you even here? You don't even need to be here. You don't even look like this is not you." You know what I'm saying?
You look out of place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just out of the clear. He's like, "Why are you talking? We ain't here getting high. Don't, you're messing up.
Oh,
Why you talking to me like that? You know, God will speak to you anywhere."
Yeah,
That's
if
exactly
you use
right.
the donkey.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, I know you said you talked about how big your habit was, and I would have to say if you took that habit and put it in today, right, it would be $5,000-$10,000 a week.
Yeah, I'll be dead.
That you would be
Probably
spending plus, you know.
Yes.
And so here's one of the things I would ask you: what would you say was the breaking point for you? What trouble did you find yourself in? And what was like the breaking point? Now I know next episode, right? We're going to be winding this one down, but I know next episode we're going to talk about the change, right? Like what happened, and then what did that road look like as it evolved? But what was it that actually brought you to a point where you were like, something's got to change? And what happened? Like, did you get busted? Like, can you just talk about that for a little bit? Just a couple minutes.
I never got busted. I never got in trouble. Never went to jail.
Okay.
I had lost control of my life. I was losing literally control. And I didn't have long. You talking about within a couple of days, I could have lost my military career. I could have lost my government career. The biggest thing, I could have lost her because she was at her breaking point. She was like, I can't do this no more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love you, but you ain't finna take everything that we ever worked for. You know what I mean? We were just in them young stages. So not only in the natural, spiritually, John, I had lost control. I knew I had lost control and I needed a fix. And I needed a fix right now.
So what happened there? Like at that point, did you go to talk? Did you have somebody you could talk to? Did you have someone you went to and said, look, I need you to pray with me. I need help. What took place that like this day I'm this person and then the next day there was a different Gary?
Well, I could tell you how that went. I had went out on a 3-day binge on crack cocaine. I had made up in my mind that I wasn't coming back. Scotty beat me up. That's it. So I had all this dope, a half ounce. I just was out getting high for 3 days. And then my wife, my girlfriend, she was at home. In the meantime, some Christian people had came over there and was praying. She had finally told somebody that I was in them streets.
So all the stuff that you were going through, you needed to be able to talk to.
Because we didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you know, when you're dealing with certain things and people, you can't really tell.
Yeah.
But I know they seen a change from when he first started to now, but I never told anyone he was doing drugs. I never told my family. I never told anyone.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But just prior to him saying that, he can finish up. Some of the signs that should have scared him or was scaring him is like every place he stepped, it got destroyed. Like he was in a drug house. The very time he walked out, literally, it caught on fire.
Yeah, they burnt up. 3 houses
Burned up. Or the one time he was in a drug house and literally 30 minutes after he walked out, it got busted.
It got raided.
Everything that everywhere
you
he
were
was.
one step ahead.
Yes.
Right.
And you said, at some point, I'm going to miss the step.
Right.
And it's going to be me.
It's going to be him.
Yes.
So then he goes to that 3-day binge. That's
okay.
So prior to that, every place he was stepping was being destroyed or destruction was coming to
And
it.
you were feeling the heat.
Yes.
Because you were like, what was happening was you were being pointed to a decision.
Yes.
You were feeling like, man, I got to either get out of
or be
this
destroyed.
or get out of life.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you were feeling the heat from that.
Because the Bible says he warns you for destruction, right?
Yeah.
And he does.
Yeah.
Or head down 71 to Mansfield.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
That's destruction too.
Yeah, right.
Because right before he gave his life to Christ, or maybe even after that, it was a major federal bust.
Yes.
And everybody that was in that ring got at least 10 years or more.
People that you knew.
Yeah, I knew every last one of them on the roster. so bad that you would have thought I told.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That. Yeah,
you would have thought I told.
It was almost like you had a list and said, "Here you go," and I'm free, right?
Yes.
Which is scary.
Yeah.
Right. But he wasn't free, because if you're not free inside or mentally, you're not free.
Right. Well, that brings us to the point where I think is a great place for us to come to the first episode, where we've got to know a little bit about you, got to hear kind of what you guys have been through, and how deep this thing went in your life. And it's really interesting how again these choices that we make, folks, can take us in a direction that we don't know about. And there may be some of you again that are watching today that maybe can associate with some of what Gary's sharing, right? And I think that there comes points in our life where we can get stuck and we just don't know how to make another step.
Yes.
Right. I think I talked about this in a previous episode, where it's kind of like we're in a room and we're in the corner and we're like a robot against the corner, constantly walking forward and bouncing our head in the corner because there's nowhere to go. We can't find a way out. Right. So I would urge those of you who are listening to visit Gary, visit his website. Gary, what is your website?
www.northhillcommunityhouse.org.
We're on Facebook.
And on Facebook as well. And his book, From Dealing to Healing, which shares a little bit about his life and the transformation of what's happened to him. And, these guys have impacted the lives of people in Akron significantly over the past 21 years.
Yeah, 30 years.
30 years, actually.
30 years.
I've only known you 25
since
of that.
91.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 33. Actually, it's 34 years that we've been doing this.
I know the community house that they have is doing great things for the community, and it's a pillar there. It's established there, and we're going to bring them back. I want to just remind you that you might be able to take some of this information and do something with it today.
Yes.
Right? Don't just listen to the podcast and say that was cool. Listen to it and say, hey, what are some of the things that might apply to your life? And I want to just say one other thing here. On the side where we talk about that you are a spiritual person and that you can't neglect that part of your life, right?
Right.
Understand that some of the things that Gary was just sharing with us about the walking out of a house and like in minutes it blew up, and walking out of a house and all these people got busted, right? Do you think it was an incident or an accident that happened?
Right.
The thing to remember is that God pursues us, right? He pursues us out of love. And I want to make that plain to you.
Yes.
I don't care how bad you are. I don't care what you're into. I don't care what you've done. I don't care. There is nothing that you can do that he cannot help and forgive you for.
That's right. That's right.
And I think, John, I'm not trying to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
But when you have a calling or a purpose on your life, I don't care what you do.
Yep.
You can't run from that.
You ain't gonna have no peace.
I've faced that.
Purpose.
I walked away from my calling to help people in life, and away from the things that I used to be involved in. And I would go out and I would find myself on the weekend sitting in a bar drinking and partying. And in comes somebody who would sit down next to me, and within minutes they'd be like, I need to get back to church.
Right.
And I'm like, really?
Yeah, what'd you say?
Seriously?
It's gonna find
I'm
you.
hanging out in the bar, drinking and partying.
That's
and
right.
here comes somebody.
About church.
I'm like, really? God, you're going to send somebody right here to me? And it happened more than once.
Right.
I'm not joking with you.
Correct.
Sit right next to me.
When you have a calling, I'm going to say it again. When you have a calling and a purpose on your life, and trust me, everybody does. You just got to figure out what it is.
We're not here for just to waste space.
Right.
If you are living and breathing and still have breath in your body, you have a purpose and a calling.
That's exactly right.
So figure out what you need to do to fulfill that purpose.
That's what you're doing here. I mean, you're not here to just take up air, right? It's God made us all to be our skills, our gifts, all those things for purpose. To impact people and life here. So, hey, I hope you'll join us again on the next episode for part 2. I want to remind you to please share the podcast with people. It's not a long period of time. Just take a minute, share it, and have your friends that you think it'll be relevant to download it. I want to remind you that there's only one you, and you are unique. And I'm John, and I'm out.